If America ever broke apart, what would we actually fight over? Alexander Hamilton didn't have to guess. He listed the flashpoints one by one. He said they would be territory, trade, money, and pride. In Federalist No. 7, Hamilton warns that disunion wouldn't just invite conflict, it would guarantee it. Because history doesn't run on friendship, it runs on interest. I'm Matt Hasquin, I'm a high school history teacher, and we're going through the Federalist Papers. We're up to No. 7, having just completed Hamilton's No. 6. And in No. 6, Hamilton showed us human nature was based on, ambition and jealousy and greed. And now he gets specific. What exactly would turn that ambition into war between the American states? And he named four causes. One would be disputed territories, then commercial rivalries, then unpaid debts, and then personal or political pride. And each one, he says, has destroyed nations before, and it would do it here again. So, first up, let's talk about land, the disputed territory. Hamilton points to the western frontier, the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes region, and lands newly claimed after the Revolution. He reminds readers that several states still claimed overlapping rights. New York, Virginia, Massachusetts, and Connecticut all had old colonial charters that reached out westward. And if the Union collapsed, who would settle those claims? Courts? No. Armies would. And he predicted that border skirmishes and forts that were built too close together and settlers caught in the middle, all those things would be exactly the kind of disputes that turned European neighbors into lifelong enemies. When we look at the commercial rivalries, the commerce, Hamilton warns that states would fight for control of trade routes, ports, and also tariffs. New York could tax goods heading to New Jersey. Virginia could undercut Maryland's ports. The South, well, they could strike deals with Britain or France when the North would resent that. Does that sound familiar? Well, he's describing economic warfare, trade barriers, retaliation, embargoes, long before the terms really, were in practice. Now, if you have a national government, it prevents those things, by setting one commercial policy for everybody. When we get into the problem, the third problem, public debts, the public debts especially from the Revolution, some states had paid off their share. Others, well, they had not. And if we broke apart, those balances would become nationalistic fuel. The creditors would chase after the debtors. Accusations of corruption would begin to fly around. And so Hamilton imagined recriminations, resentment, and perhaps reprisal. And as the foremost financial architect for the country, well, he knew exactly how money could ignite politics. And then the political and personal pride, the fourth one. Well, the most dangerous, he saw it, was the pride factor. Hamilton says that even when material causes fade, pride remains. Rival confederacies would compare their militaries, their economies, their influence abroad. Insults would grow. And in a world that's driven by honor, somebody, would eventually take the bait. Now, he calls it the love of power or the desire of preeminence. But in short, we could just call it, ego. Now, Hamilton echoes Jay's warning from his trilogy of unity or union, when Jay was warning that foreign nations would exploit those divisions. Britain might back a northern confederacy, while France might start to back the south. Spain might seize western lands, which we argued over with, who owns those? So disunion, Hamilton will say, doesn't just weaken us, it invites manipulation. And so Hamilton then goes, like he did in No. 6, he draws on history again. He points to the quarrels among the Dutch provinces and the endless conflicts among the European kingdoms. Even allies like England and Scotland fought for centuries before they united. And so if geography alone guaranteed peace, well, then Europe would have been a paradise. And it wasn't. And neither would we be, right? So Hamilton then begins to point toward the frontier. And his insight here is kind of prophetic. He writes that a disunited America would see the frontier drenched in blood. But why? Well, because whoever controlled the West would control the wealth. Settlers would appeal to different regional confederacies for protection. Each would send militias, and sooner or later, those militias would clash. And he was describing a civil war before anyone could imagine one. And even without open war, Hamilton says economic fragmentation would cripple prosperity. States would chase short-term advantage over long-term stability. Custom houses would sprout along at every river and road. Smuggling would thrive. And unity, political, moral, commercial, would all die slowly. The Constitution, according to Hamilton, is the firewall against that kind of decay. So beneath all the examples lies one truth. Human interest outweighs good intention. If you want peace, you must design for it. So Hamilton's realism is the heart of the Federalist Papers. He doesn't preach virtue, he designs guardrails. And so the Union is not a dream, it's a mechanism. And so if you look at all this in a chain of reasoning like we've done with the other episodes, if we condense Hamilton's case, we can do this in about 5 this time. And the first one is that disunion will lead to border disputes. The second one, those disputes breed economic retaliation. The third one is that debt and pride add fuel to all this. 4, foreign powers would exploit the chaos. And 5, the result isn't liberty, it's borderline anarchy. So therefore, union is not optional, it's survival. So the reason why it matters today, why Federalist number 7 does. Well, Federalist number 7 feels eerily modern. Change ports and tariffs to things like data and energy, and the same logic is going to apply here. Regional competition, economic jealousy, and pride still test every nation. Hamilton's point endures. Systems hold will rebuild structures that force cooperation even when we disagree. So if we have 3 takeaways here, 1 is that disunion turns political differences into physical change. The second one would be that economic jealousy is as deadly as military rivalry. And the third one is the Constitution's true genius is prevention, not perfection. So Federalist number 7 isn't just history, it's kind of just, it's foresight. Hamilton was seeing the future clearly. Without union, America's greatest threat would always be America itself. I'm Matt Hasquin, and this is another one of those things you should know by being alive. If you're enjoying this series on the Federalists, hey, stick around for the next one because I'll be going up to Federalist number 8. Because up next, Hamilton explains why a strong central government isn't the enemy of liberty. It's actually the guardian of it. Thanks for watching.